Hello everyone, this is Dado filling in for Bife today. I understand this is not really my department, but I will do my best to record a good listening experience for everyone watching today. I'm sorry ahead of time, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of the word hemth. I'm going off of how Google Translate does it.
Hemth.
Hemth. That's what it sounds like. My Icelandic, not really up to code, so I do apologize to the Icelandic audience out there. Today we're looking into the House of Kings, what their involvement in the Warlord's Ruin dungeon is, and how they eventually formed the dragon cult that would worship the bones of Hemth. If you didn't watch the previous video on the Warlord Naim, you're going to want to catch up on that. For the moment, here are the shorter, relevant details. The Warlord Naim had traveled to meet Hemth to make a deal with him. She would go to other villages and use Hemth's power to grant their wishes and their desires, while shouldering the burden placed upon her by Hemth. All wishes come at a cost, and Naim was deliberately bearing it for those that she went to protect. This eventually gathered the attention of the fallen House of Kings, who sent a massive force to storm the keep and take the fight to the Warlord. It's clear that many of them must have died, but in the process, they were successful in slaying Naim. But it's at this moment that she made one final wish of her friend Hemth. She wished ruin upon the House of Kings, and that, quote, her vengeance would follow them into the grave, end quote. That specific wording matters given that it dictated what would happen to the kings. That would be what doomed them. Before we get into that though, a little lore on the House of Kings. Knowing their background, it's perhaps not surprising that the House of Kings would be interested in Naim's fortress as a location. Unlike the House of Devils or House of Winter, their house generally didn't tend to claim power through control of vast territories. The footprint of the House of Kings is instead one that's much more decentralized, ironically enough given the name. A remote and hard-to-reach stronghold in the European mountains sounds like something they specifically would want. Hemth's wish magic was their main reason for taking the fortress, but given the king's strategy of being more dispersed than the other houses, you can see why they might have been glad to discover and occupy the Warlord's Ruin for themselves. As for the kings in a broader sense, you get the feeling that they're a house of true survivors amongst an already hardy people. Their lore tells us that their Kell was based in a stronghold on the Tangled Shore, but we also know that the House of Kings also claimed a listening post on Mars at Olympus Mons, and an operational command center in the Cosmodrome on Earth. Their territory being so spread out made them far less brittle when compared to other houses. Before the onset of the Red War, when the other fallen houses on Earth struck their banners and folded into the House of Dusk, it was the Kings who still managed to hold on. It's likely that their earthbound forces folded, but unlike the Devils, this did not spell their end. Their Kell's stronghold in the reef stood standing, and so the House of Kings did not easily fold. Returning to the past and the House of Kings' assault on Naim's stronghold, we know they were successful. However, the only details we get about this are from Crow's recounting of Naim's dying words.
Naim and Hefn, that's the Ahamkara's name. They'd become friends. Pretty tragic, actually. Saladin said their bond was like a mutual domestication. But it wasn't long before the House of Kings stormed the castle.
When the kings came, I take it Naim didn't survive them?
No. And in her final breath, she wished ruin on their house. That her vengeance follow them into the grave. Very particular wording.
So, with that particular wording brought up again, let's talk about what Skorn are. In the simplest terms, they're undead fallen. With the lore that we've seen over the last half a decade or so, we've started to learn a lot more about what specifically makes up the Skorn. besides the whole being dead bit, the Scorn needs something to corrupt their normal ether into dark ether. Generally, this is found in Taken corruption or the powers of the darkness. There are only 4 individuals who have been known to be able to do this. Riven was the first, the Fanatic was the second, the Witness would be the third, and Hemph would be the latest. But Hemph was missing something crucial to make this happen. He was sitting on a mound of dead fallen bodies from the House of Kings, but he needed a way to corrupt their ether in order to turn them into Scorn. Lucky for us, Crow and Petra are able to put 2 and 2 together.
It's like the Ahamkara here was feeding off the Taken, preying on their desire to fulfill a purpose. We understand what that's like.
They do like things that loop in on themselves. I thought only Riven dealt with the Taken.
Xivu and the Witness are indisposed. Many Taken are masterless. It's possible a strong will, like an Ahamkara, could have drawn them in.
Or maybe the Scorn wished them here.
Any Scorn making a wish probably doesn't realize they're doing it. At least let's hope not.
This has to be the castle from Saladin's story. The Scorn have to be kings. It's the only thing that makes sense. Heffend was buried here since the Dark Age, but the instant he could, he lured the Taken in. Poisoned himself, feeding off their ties for the darkness, their want. He found a loophole to raise the kings into Scorn and enact his friend's dying wish for revenge.
Holding on to that anger for what? Centuries? Just to destroy itself with Taken corruption. Of course. Vengeance is an Ouroboros, and everything cyclical is doomed to destroy itself eventually.
So there's a lot of back and forth there with Petra and Crow, so here are the important bits. When the Witness and Xivu left or lost their power, aka the end of Season of the Witch, Hemph drew in the Taken with his strong will. He then took in their corrupting power. By doing so, Hemph became a little bit like Riven, an Ahamkara infused with Taken power. Hemph would then finally have the opportunity to raise the House of Kings forces that had died here and turn them into Scorn, thus fulfilling Naim's final wish. So now, there are a bunch of Taken and a bunch of Scorn throughout the fortress. How exactly does this turn from a bunch of mindless zombies into a dragon cult? The answer? It's all culture. Simply put, the Scorn who were resurrected into their new forms by wish magic would begin to act with ritualistic behavior around the bones of Hemph. They would place them in shrines and lock them away from intruders. They would even start to kneel and worship them. You can find these gatherings of Scorn throughout the dungeon, knelt in reverence to these totems. Normally, the Scorn chieftains would deploy these on the field of battle to create a tactical advantage, but in this instance they're different. Cleanse one of them on the battlefield and look at their center. You'll see the bones suspended within. In the quest attached to the dungeon, we even get Hemph's opinion on this, attached in one of the quest steps. He says, "The Scorn carry my bones like relics. They worship, they pray, they form rituals. They place them on shrines to bring good fortunes. But with each wish made in ignorance, I dig their graves deeper." Petra and Crow make commentary on this note of the Scorn actually being more cultured here as being important because it sets these Scorn apart from the Witness's own forces. Take a listen.
This all feels personal. Uldren links to the kings, both linked to Fikrul. My one dangling thread.
Step back from yourself. New Scorn Rising drew Fikrul's attention, kings no less. What if this was a diplomatic envoy? The Witness's Scorn are empty flesh-made weapons, but the Scorn here appear to express a crude culture.
Fikrul's followers have always been different, capable of learning. Maybe he saw that potential here.
Then maybe you can still get through to him.
So the Scorn here developed their own unique cult that worshipped the remains of a dragon. This dragon cult would be a beacon to more than just the Guardians drawn here to exact Naim's vengeance. Petra and Crow made mention of Fikrul the Fanatic, whose own forces would also make their way to this keep of their own accord. Their part in this story, as well as the future story for the Scorn as a whole, is what we'll be covering next. This was Dado tagging in for Byf. Hopefully I did the voiceover some amount of justice here. I know Byf appreciates everyone's patience while he regains his voice, but for now, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.